Welcome to the Hard Truth Podcast. This is Jeremy Fouts. In today's episode, we are going to be talking about learn to climb and keep climbing. All of you know that I believe big time in mindset. I believe big time in getting your mind right. But today, I'm going to give a little bit of a twist on it's not just the mindset, it's the actions. And I'm going to get into this because I work with a lot of people, and they definitely want to achieve greatness, but not give up what they're currently doing. So I want to talk to you about learning to climb and keep climbing and give you the best analogy that I can to really transform where you are today to where you want to be. And I know this is going to be a little bit deep. I've had this training that I wrote out probably about 2 months ago, and I was looking to add to this training. And then I said, you know what, this is going to be a short and sweet training, but I hope that this really resonates with some of the audience listening to let them know they got to focus on one thing at a time. So I'm excited for this training. I want to do my best here, so I'm going to take my time, but this is definitely going to be a short and sweet training.
Let's go.
Number one, what are you doing that you want to stop doing? And I want you to think about that for a second. Whether it be, eating a bunch of bad foods, drinking too much, procrastination of time, not managing finances correctly. What are some of the things that you are doing on a daily basis that when you get up, you start doing those things again? You said, man, yesterday I told myself I wasn't going to do this, and here I am doing it. So what are you doing that you want to stop doing? Next question is, what do you want to start doing that you are not doing? So think about that. I want to start lifting weights. I want to start running. I want to start making more money. I want to start building my business at a higher rate. I want to start, developing stronger relationships. I want to start. What are some of the things you are not doing that you want to start doing? Then the next thing I want to ask you is, what action do you want to change? Because it starts with the actions that you want to change. Now, here's something I really want you to think about. Here's what you got to do. It's either you got to stop a bad thing or you got to start a good thing. And I'm gonna break this down to really a simple example of you have to focus on one thing at a time. And the example that come to my mind, I have a lot of people call me with fitness questions. And most importantly, men will call me up and say, hey, I want to gain 10 pounds of muscle, but I want to lose 10 pounds of fat. And I tell them immediately when they call me and say, this is my request, I say, hey, we got to focus on one thing at a time. See, when you're in a calorie surplus, that's when you're able to put on muscle. When you're in a calorie deficit, that's when you're going to cut, body fat, absolutely. But it's hard to put on muscle when you're in a large calorie deficit. So I'm giving you this analogy and this example because here's what a lot of people do. They wake up in the morning and say, I'm not going to eat bad like yesterday. I'm not going to drink like yesterday. But they don't stop that. But they say they want to start lifting weights. I want to start making more money. I want to start all these different things. And literally, guys, it's not possible. You can't wake up in the morning and say, I want to get in the best shape of my life. I'm going to do all these different things, but I don't want to give up what I'm currently doing to limit my production. I cannot be proactive and take a list and go to work tomorrow on that list, but still have procrastination in my life. I can't build my business and go out and network and help people know who I am and to help them with their problem solving when I cannot focus and problem solve for myself. One of my greatest friends, and he's an older gentleman in his mid-70s, and I'll tell you this, if you do not have someone older in your life that you can gain wisdom from, I would encourage you to find that. And if you have a grandpa in your life, you have a dad in your life still, spend some time with them, because older gentlemen, in my opinion, are some of the most wise individuals you've ever seen. And I can tell you, you can learn a lot of life lessons from older individuals. But this one story, at the time, a lot of you know that I owned a ranch in Colorado. And at this time of my life, I was running 400 head of red Angus cattle. I had an outfitting license in Colorado. We was doing hunts at the lodge, 5 or 6 guys a week. I also owned the core beef company. We just got through launching that. And Steve, the guy that was helping me feed cattle, he said, Jeremy, after work one day, can I give you some advice? And I said, absolutely, Steve. I'll take advice from you anytime. He said, if you take a plate of food and you keep adding to that, he said, eventually something's going to fall off. And he said, you got a wife, you got 2 kids, you got a company, you got a cattle ranch, you got an outfitting company. And he said, I'm telling you right now, you've got too much on your plate. So that really resonated with me, that, you know what? I've got to focus on the priorities here. I've got to focus on the main things, or if not, something's going to fall off my plate. And if that falls off my plate and it happens to be my wife's relationship, my 2 boys, that's not worth what I'm trying to accomplish. So number 1, answer this question. What are you doing that you want to stop doing? And what are you not doing that you want to start doing? Number 2, there's an old proverb, and the saying behind this proverb says, behind mountains are more mountains. There is always new mountains you want to climb, but you have to learn to climb first. And that's the reason I named this podcast, Learn How to Climb and Keep Climbing. Because a lot of times people think, well, once I stop eating bad foods, when I stop doing this behavior, this action, then my life is going to improve. I'm going to tell you, it's awesome to stop that behavior, that action that is limiting to you have the success that you want to have. But I'm going to tell you, the way life is designed, when you get to this top of the mountain, there's always another mountain. Pearson and I was elk hunting one day, and he was about 10 or 11, and we was going up in the mountains in Colorado, and he said, let's go to the top of this peak. And I knew what he was thinking. He was thinking this is going to be the top of the mountains. We get to the top of that peak. He looked up. He said, let's go to the top of that peak. We went to the top of that peak, and I know what he was thinking. He was thinking, man, now that we're at the top of this peak, there's another peak. That's the way life is designed. So you have to learn how to climb. You have to learn to stop doing what you're currently doing. Start doing what you want to do, and then just keep on climbing. You can only see the mountain in front of you when you get to the top of the mountain. Now you can see the next mountain. See, that's the way it works. So if you stop doing the bad things now and you start doing something great, that's awesome. But you're going to come to that next mountain and say, you know what? Now that I'm here, I'm going to have to stop doing these other things and start doing these new things in order to get me to that next peak. Number 3, you have to change the action. Change in mindset, no change in action equals nothing. I see this over and over. People think, man, I've got my mind right now. I'm ready. I'm motivated. I'm all these different things. I've got a friend that I probably have recommended him 10 or 15 personal development books over the last 2 years. But you know what? He's still in the same spot in life. The reason why is he's reading these books, and I'm glad he's reading these books. He's changing the mindset, but he's not taking any action. The other day I told him, here's the problem we have. You're reading the books, and that's great. But I'm not going to recommend another book until you start applying some of these actions in these books that you've already read. So you have to change the action, change in mindset. No change in action equals nothing. Number 4, change in mindset, change in action equals overall change. So yes, great to change the mindset, but nothing's going to change unless you change the action as well. You change the mindset and the action, that's when you're going to have overall change. Number 5, thinking and doing nothing equals nothing. I always jump ahead of myself. You guys know that I'm a dyslexic and ADD and ADHD. I meant to, share this a little bit more in depth when I got to this point, but I already jumped ahead to my friend's story. And a lot of people, they spend all their time thinking and doing nothing, which equals to nothing. You have to understand the only way you're going to have change in your life is taking action. The hard true fact for the day, pretty simple, but I got a story. I know I've shared a little bit of this story in the podcast before, but I'm going to get a little bit more in depth and try to give you a good analogy and paint a picture for you. But the hard true fact, thinking and doing nothing don't get it done. What you got to do is focus on one fence post at a time. The one fence post at a time story, my wife and I, we lived in Frisco, Texas, and we actually retired from a nutrition company. And I wanted to teach my boys about agriculture. I wanted to teach them about physical labor. I wanted to teach them about responsibilities. And I wanted some time with my family because previously when I was with that nutrition company, I was traveling 4 or 5 nights a week. I was speaking overseas, Korea, Japan, Costa Rica, Mexico, and I was just at that point in my life where I wanted to dedicate some time to my family. So we bought a ranch up in Colorado, and a lot of you that know and understand the ranching community in Colorado, they have what they call a fence out state. If you don't fence out your property, then trespassing cattle can come in and graze your grass. Well, obviously, this was a big problem because we wanted to graze our own grass. We didn't want other cattle coming into our ranch. And Candace and I and Beckett and Pearson was up at the top of this mountain. And I was giving them a picture of the 13 miles of fence that we needed to build. And guys, I'm going to tell you, the topography, the terrain was horrendous. I mean, it was unbelievable spots that literally where you have to drive a fence post. It's just a complete drop off that you have to hang on to the next fence post while you're trying to drive the next fence post. I mean, it was just so steep. It was ridiculous. And the amount of brush, the oak brush, all the types of brush that is very sticky and hard for you to get through. We had to clear that out before we could even drive the fence post. But at this point in my life, I was excited for the journey, and my wife and 2 boys, they was just overwhelmed. And I'm not going to lie, I was a little overwhelmed too, but I'm the leader of the family, so I was trying to act like it was no big deal. And I looked at my wife and 2 boys, and they looked at me in concern. They said, how in the world are we going to get this fence built before summer? And I looked them dead in the eyes, and I said, one fence post at a time. See, when we was able now to get that project completed, one of their favorite things to do was to drive up on the Ranger and to look at that completion of that fence line project. For them to look and say, you know what, this may have been overwhelming, but basically we accomplished this together as a family because we focused on one fence post at a time. We didn't look and say, man, I want to build a fence line, but how are we going to do it, and overthink it and think, man, this is impossible. I don't know if we can accomplish this together just as a family. We focused on one fence post at a time and completed that project. I don't know where a lot of you are in your life right now, but I know, as from having a large audience, mostly men that's listening, a lot of your problems in life right now is you're overwhelmed. You're thinking, man, how do I get in shape? How do I make more money? How do I do this? How do I do that? And you're thinking about so much with so much on your plate. And I'm going to tell you the key is to focus on one fence post at a time. It's to focus on stop doing the things that is limiting your growth. Stop doing the things that is not allowing you to reach your full potential, and say, you know what, enough is enough. I'm stopped doing, just make a list right beside you on a piece of paper, the things that you need to stop doing and then the things you need to start doing, and say, I'm going to focus on stopping these things. Now that that's complete, I'm going to focus on starting these things. And I'm going to focus on one fence post at a time. I'm going to learn how to climb, but knowing that once I get to that top of that mountain, there's another mountain behind me. I'll face that when I get there, but that is perfectly fine because I'm going to learn how to climb, and I'm going to keep on climbing. Thank you guys for joining the Hard Truth Podcast. I know a lot of people have texted me enjoying the podcast, wanting to know how to leave reviews. If it's Apple, just Google how to leave an Apple review on a podcast, how to do that on Spodcast or on Spotify, And I promise you guys, I'm going to continue to pour into you, to help you through a lot of things that I went through in life. The struggles of life are real, but you can focus on one fence post at a time and complete the project. Thank you guys. Good day. Let's go.